Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tami, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami, and this is episode 127. Today, I'm sharing some inspiring excerpts from our January 2024 Fibromyalgia Stories of Hope and Healing event. You'll hear 4 graduates share their personal stories and how they've been able to improve their fibromyalgia symptoms. On average, graduates of our Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor class improved by about 50% during the 3-month class. Today, you'll hear their stories in their own words. You'll hear Julie share during her commencement speech how she's gone from being in bed 90% of the time to becoming a coach, writing a best-selling book, helping companies, and participating in 5K and 10K races. You'll hear Dr. Kaylin share how her coach acted as a sounding board, helping her to find new things to try. She also shares how improving her fatigue increased her improvement in other areas, and how she was able to improve by 28% in spite of her many chronic health conditions. Victoria shares how she traveled the globe to find answers, from Ukraine to Canada to Turkey to Russia, and how her coach really helped her address the emotional overwhelm from the war in Ukraine, being forced to move for her health, and other stressors, so she could improve by 32%. Deb shares her journey from being a chronic pain advocate who is desperate to feel better to becoming a coach who now helps others. She shares how she's been able to improve by 68% overall, becoming nearly symptom-free. She says, "I didn't believe it was possible." She also said that life is very different now. Deb also celebrates her clients and shares what she's learned from these amazing women. If you're looking for ways to feel better yourself, consider joining us for our next class, which begins in just a few weeks. You can also work one-on-one with your own coach. We have several students who are newly available to take on new clients, in addition to our certified fibromyalgia coaches. You can find links to all the information in today's show notes at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/127. If you're interested in learning more, stay listening after our interviews. I'll have more details at the end. I also want to remind you that the information you hear today is meant to be educational only. This is not meant to be medical advice, so please take whatever you hear today to your doctor and talk with them about what might be right for you to try. To hear more inspirational fibromyalgia stories, just go to today's show notes page at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/127 for links to our other Stories of Hope episodes. Now, let me introduce you to our guest commencement speaker, Julie Hamilton. Julie graduated in January 2016 from my very first Certified Fibromyalgia Coach class. She is the founder and creator of Coaching PI and Life on Your Terms, and she's the best-selling author of Chronic Illness at Work: How Managers Can Support Employees with Chronic Illness. Julie's mission is to help companies create an inclusive environment for the chronically ill, assisting employers in implementing policies that benefit both the employee and the company. Julie understands what it takes to make work work and can educate both the company and their employees on how this collaboration can happen. Listen in as Julie shares her story with our graduating class.
Well, I especially want to welcome all of the graduates. I'm very excited for you to start this journey. I know how I felt when I first came across this, But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was diagnosed probably 15 years ago or so, and through medication, I had it pretty well managed and stuff and learned a little bit about it. And I was missing probably 2 days a month with it. And by 2 to 3 years later, I was missing maybe 1 to 2 days a year with it. And it all was through medication and things like that. And I was walking 3 miles a day. I like to be physically active. I could not run at the time. I had to give that up because of the pain in my hips. In order to go up and down in my house, I had to go up and down the stairs backwards because I couldn't lift my legs because of the pain. So I felt I had it relatively managed when I was first diagnosed in those first 3 or 4 years. But then I started dating my now husband long distance. We were 14 hours apart. I decided to move to Cincinnati, Ohio, and I lived in Nebraska. And I didn't think it would be that big of a deal because, I'm in love and the world's going to be great and I'm going to do awesome there. Right. And I'd been a HR director for 25 years. I thought finding a job would be so simple. I got a great background. I had great references. I knew what policies to use because I was HR. I mean, I knew what to do for chronic illness. I knew all of this. And I get to Cincinnati and I don't know. I think God had another plan for me because my health tanked. And I don't mean like for 1 month or 2 months or 2 days. For 4 years, I could barely get out of bed. I spent 90% of my life in bed. And I did a lot of research. Cincinnati was new to me. I'd been there for long weekends to visit, but not actually lived in the climate. So that was new. I had to research the climate. I found out that light bulbs, that I describe them as the ones that look like pigtails, they can cause fibroflares. I had 46 in my house. I went out and bought 46 new light bulbs. I just researched everything I could do. And then I come across this ad on Facebook and it was Tami. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a car. I just remember this with Barry. And I'm like, Barry, I think this is meant for me. I think I got to do this. So I sent Tami a note. I sent Tami another note. I sent Tami another note. And I'm sure she's like, oh my God, this is the craziest woman I've ever met. I don't know how I'm going to handle her in class. Am I right, Tami?
A little bit. I'm like, wow, she's excited.
But I was excited because I thought I had also researched before I ran across Tami is doing advocacy work for fibromyalgia groups and things like that, but I could never get a hold of anybody to do that. So I figured God had a plan. That wasn't the direction I was supposed to go. So I met up with Tami. I started her class in the fall of 15, and I learned so much about fibro, so much about myself, and really had to think about things that you don't really think about as I say, normal human being with an illness. You have to think outside the box in almost everything you do every day. How can I change that? What can I do different? Is this what's causing this? So I just went through a lot of that. I started coaching. I coached from my bed. I literally laid in bed and coached my clients. And I thought to myself, am I really doing them justice? But I know I was because later I got notes, I got emails, I got texts from clients saying, thank you. Thank you for giving me those quick tips on how to handle my life. I feel like I can go forward. So that meant a lot to me. But then after I became certified and I started my journey, I thought to my husband, I'm not really sure if this is the life I'm supposed to have. I cannot live here anymore. I'm one of those statistics that I don't want to live anymore because I can't do this. I don't want to live in bed. This is not the life for me. So, Tami, if you want to put up that slide, I started researching what I could do. Now, this is me on both slides, okay? The one on the left, I remember that day, it was Valentine's of 2019, and I was so sick. I was so sick in bed and I didn't want to go anywhere. And my husband said to me, we have a Valentine's dinner at church because we were active in our church. And he said, you need to get up, you need to get dressed, and we're going to go. And I felt horrible. And I had so much inflammation in my body. It was unreal. It hurt to move. It hurt to wear clothes. It hurt to take a shower. I couldn't brush my teeth. I mean, I was just one hot mess. I'm going to be honest. And we tried a couple different climates because I said, I got to get out of here. And so we tried a couple different climates, and his mom lived in the Phoenix area. And we decided to come down here for 3 months. And yes, I chose summer to move here. I lived with my mother-in-law in Phoenix, June, July, and August. And I can tell you, it was 110. It was hot, but I felt great. Okay. I felt great. And I could be out doing things. I could go for a walk. I could go for a hike. I could go to the store and not cry because the temperature hurt. I couldn't make it from the checkout counter to my car. I couldn't do the groceries. I couldn't do that stuff. I could here. And I thought, oh, bless my heart. I can do this. I really have hope. Tami gave me that hope. So moving forward, that's me on the right. That was me this summer. I took that this summer and I did a comparison and I thought, oh my gosh, that doesn't even look like me from the left to the right. I don't think, maybe you think it is, I'm myself on the right. I don't know that person on the left. Okay. So when I got here, I was still coaching clients and I really thought that I could start working on myself then. And I started being more physically active. We have a pool, so I kind of do some exercises in the pool. I started walking. I was walking, got up to 3 miles a day, and my husband, silly man that he is, said, I'm going to run a half a marathon. Why don't you walk a 10K? What? Yeah, I know you can do it. So a year ago, I did my first 10K and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm amazing. I'm amazing, man. And so I really started work on that, but I started struggling with my mental health because I still have those bad days. And unfortunately, because I have more good days than bad days now, when I have a bad day, I'm really down on myself. And I'm reteaching myself how to give myself that grace because those bad days are very far apart. Let me tell you, very far apart. So I need to learn to give myself grace. So I've been in this journey 15 years with Tami, 8.5, and I'm still reteaching myself from what she has taught me. But this last year, I've really worked on my mental health. I've worked on my physical health, and I wrote a book. It was released about a year ago, and it's Chronic Illness at Work, because I took what I was hearing from my clients and I was incorporating what I knew as an HR person. And I took what I knew as a fibro person. And I put all of that together and thought, how can I help employers learn how to work with somebody just like me? Because things I was hearing from my clients was not always accurate according to laws, or some companies weren't following them correctly or administering them correctly or weren't even aware of them. My clients weren't aware of them. And so I kind of put all that together, and that's how my book came together. And I just want to throw out a couple of statistics like Tami did, because when I'm out there working with companies and I say, how many people who are employed with your company have a chronic illness? Oh, none of our employees do. Really? Really? I find that interesting because it shows 6 out of 10 people have one chronic illness. Okay. 4 out of 10 have 2. So if you have 10 people, you have a chronic illness in here. If you have 20, think how many you have. If you have 100, 500, it doesn't matter. You have people with chronic illnesses, but they don't want to tell you because they're scared. And all you see is a performance issue. You got to learn how to work with them. You need to make those connections. And so that's really been my passion and focus this last year is really getting in and working with companies to teach them how to work with us. Because as Tami said, and I totally agree, as COVID came about and the pandemic, businesses learned how to work differently, but then we have long COVID. We have chronic illnesses that are being diagnosed because of long COVID. Because why? Stress. Stress does wonders to our body. So therefore, we're getting more chronic illnesses. And that's really what my passion has been. It's always been working with people. And it's just evolved over the years to not only work with fibro people, but I'm starting to get in with some chronic illnesses because I can refer them on, and working with companies. And when I'm talking with companies, I'm talking about fibromyalgia coaches. If I have somebody that can come to me and I know that they have a specialty, I can refer them to this coach, or I can give them to Tami, or I can give them with this coach. And so I think it's really getting more advocacy out there, not only in the medical field like Tami does with the doctors and, Melissa Talwar in Congress, and then me with employers, and just keep that focus and get out there as much as we can and advocate for the fibromyalgia community and the chronic illness community as a whole. So that's kind of been my journey this year. And then a couple months ago, I would say a couple months, it was probably July, August, my husband said, let's run a 5K. I said, okay, when is it? And he said, it's in December. And I said, well, I don't run. And he said, well, you're going to start. So first day, I ran 2 blocks. I was like, woo, I ran 2 blocks. I was texting my son, and he's so proud of me and my daughter and everything, and every day I was out there, I ran a little bit more. I talked to Brenda, who also graduated with me, and she kind of gave me some encouragement there. I got a treadmill. I started running, and you know what? I did it. A month ago, I ran a 5K, and I thought I'm never going to cross that finish line because I have panic attacks. A side effect of the medicine I took years ago. I still have panic attacks around crowds, and there was 9,000 people running this 5K. Okay. I was scared to death. I would just panic. But I got on the outside and I got my music in and I started focusing on my goal. So that is me crossing the finish line. And yeah, I had a shirt, running with chronic pain, and the back of it said, run like you could run forever. So I was out there advocating for us, even on my 5K runs. I thought about signing up for one and trying to raise some money for fibro, even to get more awareness out there. But I kind of wanted to use this slide because I set a goal and I crossed that finish line. And that's kind of what you guys are doing today. You set that goal, whether it's an advisory class, whether it's a coaching class. Today, you've hit that goal and you're crossing that finish line. So what's your next goal? When are you going to cross that finish line? How are you going to do that? I know I'm setting up my goals. After I've crossed this, I've really been contemplating what it is. Is it another 5K? Is it a 10K? Instead of 3.1 miles, is it going to be 6.2? Someday I'd love to do a half a marathon. Whoa, that's 13 miles. Can I do it? I didn't even think I could do a 5K. And my son, I said, can you believe I did that? And he said, Mom, I always knew you could. I always knew you could. And man, does that get me right in the heart, because I never believed in myself, but everybody else did. So I think that's one thing that you have to do now that you're graduating. And I'm super excited for you to start this journey. But set that next goal. Don't let it stop with just graduation today and that's be it. What's your next goal? Okay. Is it how many clients? Is it to write a book? Is it to advocate? Is it to do this? Whatever it is, set that and celebrate. I mean, arms up, screaming, I did it, because that's what you want to do. Celebrate those little successes. So congratulations, everybody. I welcome you to this awesome community.
I hope you found Julie's commencement speech and hearing her story as inspiring as we did. If your company is interested in working with Julie to create a more fibro-friendly environment, I've included her contact info on today's show notes page. Just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/127. There will also be a link on that same page where you can buy Julie's book, Chronic Illness at Work. Now, let's get to the part I know you really want to hear. Our graduate interviews where they share how they've improved their fibromyalgia during the last few months. Let's start with Kaylin in Virginia. Welcome, Kaylin. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I have to say, as I was reading your bio earlier, that PhD at the end of your name means that you are technically Dr. Kaylin Glover.
I like to say I am a doctor. I am not your doctor, and I'm not that kind of doctor.
Right, exactly. So, obviously, as you started this class, you might have known a thing or two, right?
A little bit.
So, knowing that, then, how was it for you taking the class, working with your coach, Brenda? How was all of that a help to you?
Yeah, so that was one of the interesting things about choosing to do the course is because I had already finished my program and I did not anticipate starting another kind of course. But I had been having to sort of piece together what had been going on in my own life, earning sort of kind of 2 degrees at the same time, one in myself as I'm Googling, and by Googling, I mean Google Scholar, the research articles that I'm finding on fibro. And at that time, I came across, your podcast, and I was like, they know what they're doing because it matched up what I was finding. But it was really hard to find it all myself. And so I decided to do the course because I knew that you had all of that information for me. And I didn't have to go diving into the research myself. I had plenty of other stuff to research because I also have a lot of different conditions that intersect. So I really had a lot of trauma from my program. So it took a lot of convincing to do a course. But
I remember we talked about that and whether or not that the course itself would cause issues, right?
it didn't. I learned a lot of things. I was able to dive deeper onto the things that I wanted to I want to learn a little bit more about the scientific mechanism of why L-tyrosine turns out to be helpful. And that was something I got to do and got to enjoy when I wanted to, but I didn't have to do it in order to what I was having to do before, in order to just figure out what was wrong. And so I found a lot of things really helpful. And I found working with a coach was also surprisingly helpful. I'm a very independent, I'm just going to look into things myself and get myself going kind of person. And I never thought that a coach would be particularly helpful. And so I went in skeptical, but I found that it was so useful to have somebody who knew my condition, at least one of my conditions. And I didn't have to do all that teaching and that emotional labor I have to do for everybody else in my life. And then as I'm trying to puzzle piece what symptoms I'm having are caused by what condition, having Brenda there to help me figure it out. And she knew, and one of the reasons why you matched this up was because she's very good with people who have complex and conditions. And so she knew what she was getting into. Maybe. Well, you can check with her later and you'll see.
Right.
So it was really helpful to be able to have somebody there to bounce ideas off of as a sounding board to, help me figure out the things where I wasn't alone, really, because you feel so alone having to teach your doctors your own condition. And there was somebody in my corner who I didn't have to do that for. And that was really helpful.
That's awesome. Yeah, Brenda is particularly good for those complex medical cases, having come from that background herself, right? But also just the way her brains work. So I knew she'd be a perfect match for you. So I'm so glad that that was helpful. And I know one of the things that you really focused on improving was well, I don't know if you focused on it, but improving your fatigue really helped you actually improve other things too. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the common refrain or the common issue with people with fibro is the fatigue is worse than the pain because I can't address anything else if I can't get the energy to do it. And that had been a long plaguing issue. And at that time, I'd been already diagnosed with multiple sleep disorders. And so just trying to get a handle on it. And so by finally being able to address my fatigue, I was able to start making more progress. I have myofascial pain syndrome. I've got a lot of conditions that require a lot of physical therapy, a lot of exercise, but I didn't have the energy to do it. And so I couldn't make progress on those conditions until I made progress in this. And so that was such a key thing. And that's what improved more than anything else for me. And that's where almost all of my efforts went toward. And it helped me be able to launch my business, and everything hinged on that fatigue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for a lot of us, we kind of know the things that we could do or the things that might help us feel better, but I don't have the energy to actually do them,
Yeah.
right? Like eating healthier, buying healthier groceries, cooking our own food, like that in particular, I think is an area where a lot of us, like, we just don't have the energy to do that. Right. So the more energy you have, the more bandwidth you have to do things.
Yeah. And a lot of my chronic issues develop as a consequence of my program, 60 something hours a week stuck at a computer, and forcing myself to relax slash replace my working time with physical exercise, the things that I needed, but that didn't push me too hard, was a very tight rope to walk. And I had to remind myself that by taking the time to invest in my body now, even if it meant doing less of these other things, even though I have such limited energy, use that energy to recover. That was one of the things that you talked about. Use the energy to recover. That does take energy. And so forcing myself, yes, I have to stop and take a hot bath. And that sounds like such torture, I know. But people who are chronic overachievers, it kind of sometimes is. So that was force myself to do that, force myself to spend a couple of hours with a massage gun and a cupping set, just trying to get my body to relax. It ate into the other things I needed to do by figuring out how to prioritize. I used the energy I did have to ensure that I could get more energy the next day. And
Right. Kind of
I've
like
been,
investing your money to make more money kind of deal,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Now, you were able to improve by 28%. You went from a starting fibromyalgia impact questionnaire score of 57 down to 41. So, why don't you mention, what are some of the things that you did in addition to making sure you don't spend all your energy and using some of that energy for feeling better?
Uh, we did a lot of, I think it all started with the tracking. And, we always talk about track your symptoms. That's what your doctors want. Well, I did more than I would say strictly necessary. There may have been an online spreadsheet with some automatic algorithms that I plugged in there because I have too many conditions and my voice is out because I had bronchitis this week. That was fun. But I have too many conditions, too many variables. So what else do? I apply the stats I've learned and apply it. And just sample size of one, but it's over multiple days that we can talk about it later. But the
I also want to interject here. You do not have to do what
oh,
Kaylin
please
did.
don't do it. No, this is for people who have problems. It's part of my pathology. It's a feature and a bug. So doing this super intensive tracking helped me identify patterns. So what that meant is that every time I would make a change, every time I put something in, I could see, okay, over the course of 2 days, how did this affect my deep sleep? How did this affect my individual rating of this score? So of the things that I ultimately did, one of the big ones was get my TMJD under control. So that was one of the things that I'd been actually diagnosed with sleep apnea a few years before, but my CPAP mask apparently was actually making my TMJ worse, which was causing other problems. And so I got a full face mask. I found a TMJD specialist, which are incredibly hard to find, but they are out there. And I even live in an area where there's a lot of dentists. So we did a really good, throw everything at my face kind of way of addressing the problem. And we were able to get that under control. And then that on top of some very specific things that we picked up in the course, like L-tyrosine is one of the ones I just mentioned. Getting a lot of protein, which I feel like that's all I eat right now, but I'm not quite ready to back off of it yet to see how that affects. I'm still tracking other variables right now, so I'm just sticking with it. Those were some big ones. So I do CBD oil. I started CBD oil several years ago, but I started learning about all the different cannabinoids, more than just CBD and Delta 9 THC. There's so many other things that can be very helpful that are not psychoactive, that are, or at least minimally psychoactive, that activate different parts of your brain for different things. And so I've used like a specific cocktail that I infuse myself with my own little chemistry set that of different cannabinoids that have been super helpful in helping me get sleep. So each of those little things don't mean anything if I do not consistently stick to things like setting my boundaries, maintaining those boundaries, prioritizing my welfare first. Like, we go so long ignoring our bodies so that we can survive. And that's one of the things we talk about is figuring out how to listen to what our bodies need. And I actually adopted the mantra at the beginning of the course, I will listen to my body's whispers so she will not have to scream. And right now we're maybe not, I always describe my relationship with her kind of like a hostage negotiation. And right now we're sort of maybe like neighbors in an apartment complex. So we hear things that the other one's doing, and maybe we slide notes and maybe a baked pie under the door every once in a while. Sometimes we're yelling and we gotta get the landlord involved, but it's a relationship. But I have one now, and that's progress.
Yes, it is. That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, I know that for people like you, all the things that you did, that actually works for you, right?
Yeah.
And that is important that you were able to take what I gave and add the extra to it that you needed to be able to, make all of that work for you, make sense for you. And I also want to remind everybody else, you don't have to do that either. But
Yeah.
that's
And
great.
I think that, again, I'm an overachiever. It's just sort of, I can't not be doing things. And I have too many conditions it's a constant balance of the scales, constant tweaking of my system. And again, like having Brenda there, having the course there to sort of help me straighten out, like these are the major things I need to be doing right now. And then as I'm doing my own research and investigation, throw in different things. And the system from the course and the coaching and combined with all the other things we were doing was what was able for me to make a bigger difference. And not everybody wants to do all those things at the same time. That's me. I'm special. I know that. Even people who are like me can benefit.
Yes, exactly. And I just want to be clear that that's what I mean. We're all different. And I know that there are a bunch of people out there who are like you listening to this, being like, okay, yeah, I see how that can work. And then I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, I'll get better if I play more, right? So, but that's okay. We're all different. We have to figure out what works for us. So, thinking about your fellow high achiever perfectionists out there, what would you say to them to just give them a little bit of encouragement?
Oh, that's hard, especially because they don't really need encouragement. Usually, if they're like me, they're doing the encouragement. I would say make sure you have people there helping you, people who know your condition, not your doctors, grab somebody else. It's so hard to do it alone. It makes it worse too. And the more people you have involved, the less you feel alone, the more people you have to carry the load, to carry the bridge if you happen to be a Brandon Sanderson Cosmere fan. But the burden becomes easier when we get to help each other. And that, I think, is what I would recommend to the people who are like me and maybe feel like they're having to, they're against the bulletin board making connections, looking with a crazed look in their face. when you have other people there, you don't feel as crazy and you don't look as crazy.
Right, exactly. When you know you're not the only one, right?
Yeah.
So what's next for Kaylin?
By the time I air, maybe I might be legally able to take on clients. Actually, my sister and I, who also has chronic conditions, started a business together where that's what we do, help people with complex and chronic health conditions figure out what's going on with them and then navigate the healthcare system. So we'll be picking up clients here very soon, and I'm very excited about that. And I'm trying not to look too far ahead. I've spent my whole life trying to plan as far ahead as I could. And then my body decided to collapse in on itself like a condemned building. And all while trying to finish my program. And I just broke. And I realized I can't keep doing that. And so I can only really just focus on the next step. What's the next most important thing? And it'll always be my body first, now at least. And then it'll be everybody else's bodies.
I love that. I love that. So for other people who have, all of this mess of stuff all intertwined and have trouble sorting it out, you are going to be a fantastic resource. So congratulations, Kaylin, and thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now we are going to go to Victoria, who happens to be in Russia at the moment. Victoria is actually going through our course for the second time. She's going to talk a little bit about that in her interview. Hi, Victoria. Congratulations.
Thank you, Tim. So now in Russia, my time is 1 a.m. I still survive, you see. So that is the result of changing my life with the fibromyalgia, and I would like to share my story because I think the story is unique, and I had a lot of stress and difficulties going through my life. Actually, I'm from Ukraine. I lived in Ukraine before, then I moved to Canada. And my story with fibromyalgia starts from my childhood, how just like all of us, but we didn't see this small signs that we had at my family. They didn't know that I'm unique child. I was healthy, strong, but I still felt sometimes a little bit exhausted. And when I was teenage, I had my first pain in the back, and that was because of my parents' divorce. And that time I started also eating nothing. So I was so afraid of gain the weight, and I would like to be so perfect. So this affect my life after 30s. The first triggering stress I experienced as a psychological degree in the university in Ukraine. I had 2 degrees, and the next one is the most important. And one day at night, my neighbor came to me, knocking at the door, crying, asking me for help. And what could I do? I just ran out for help. And she knew that I'm psychologist, and I was not able to do otherwise, just went out. And the situation was so difficult because her brother, 26 years old, a young man, committed suicide. And with this family all night and managing emergency service, all these things. But I had no experience as a crisis psychologist. I wasn't ready for this. I was only 27 years old. So I got my PTSD, and then next morning I felt worse as experienced my first fibro fog, sleep in bed, something changing in my life, and I can say I have first part of my life and the second was a journey with the fibromyalgia. But that time I still could manage my life. I still was okay. I lived in Ukraine. I had my own house, my nice car, my business, and I was trying to go to the doctors and to find the way, how can I help myself, test, MRIs, everything that you do, that you did. as usual, but there was no answer, but I was still okay. Then about 30, I decided, it was 2014, to go and to see world, to see different people, to change my life, and to get new education in Canada. That was about improving lifestyle. And actually, I was looking also for stability and to take care of my future. When I came to Canada, I met the first month in Orthodox Christian church, my husband. He is scientist and successful man, and we got married in 6 months. He planned our honeymoon, and honeymoon was so many multiple flights, time change zone. I told him before marriage, I have some pain in my leg. Sometimes I'm more exhausted than others women, and also I'm different. He was trying to do his best, but he is so active. And when I came back to Toronto, I was thinking, oh, I need only 1 week just for rest, and everything will be the same. But no, the life was absolutely different. New country, new language, new culture, new rules, new food, that is important, new food, new climate, everything. And we went to sleep very late. I was overdoing. So that's what happened to me. And I felt worse. So again, Canada doctors, no answer. Came back to Ukraine, no answers. But I wanted to be so much a nice wife and woman. As so I tried Chinese traditional medicine, not only just ordinary medicine, acupuncture, osteopathy, naturopathy, uh, Pilates, salt water swimming pool. And I made so many mistakes and spent so much money for nothing. But then I heard this fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia, so difficult word. And that's, what is this? And I started searching on Google, what is this? I said, oh, maybe that is looks like my diagnosis. So I went again to doctors, and it took some time. I got my diagnosis in 2018, and also disability in Canada. Then I was digging again as psychologist. I have to change. I know how work our body, central nervous system. So I try to change my lifestyle. I try to change my attitude to the life, accepting fibromyalgia, high expectation to be perfect, overdoing, overthinking, anxiety, all this especially was also important in my story, and changing food. So I went on a keto diet. Doctor suggested me, and it worked for me very nice. Then I said, okay, I felt better maybe in a few 2 or 3 years. Then I said, maybe there are some coaches, fibromyalgia coaches, and I found International Institute of Fibromyalgia. So I worked with 3 coaches, and I have different experience, but the coaches are amazing, and all of them, they have unique, valuable experience that they can share, and maybe in that time and that point and that level where a like person and me was this time. So I had severe fibromyalgia. I couldn't move from my bed to bathroom. So, and now I have 19 point, and so an advisor course I reduced it to as 42%. Yes, again improvement. But what happened to me 2 years ago? We decided to go to Turkey to have more sun, sea, and nice weather because of my health. So we had this nice opportunity, and to change climate zone. I was feeling that I need to do this, and we decided to try it with my husband. But in a few months, the military events started in Ukraine. And this month, my husband had surgery, and he has very difficult recovery. And this month, I had to move to another apartment. And I was alone in a different country with a different language. I don't know Turkish at all. And I was doing everything first to myself, to help myself. If I had time to sleep, I slept. So I was controlling to be in this situation, not triggering my fibromyalgia, and I passed it very nice because I had a very big experience of living with fibromyalgia, accepting and manage with the new circumstances. I have husband surgery, war in Ukraine, and actually at the time I tried to help my parents and relatives to went out from the area. It was bombed. It was very difficult part of the country. And also I have lost my lovely house. And this was really difficult. And in months, I have to go to Serbia for 1 month with my husband and changing 8 places to live, different cities. That time, I said, maybe I have to do priorities. I will tell a little bit later what I did, what happened. But this managing all these things without triggering fibromyalgia, without severe flare-ups, that was really because of taking care of myself and doing everything as food, supplement, and sometimes very rare medicine. That's what I did. And this is like, then in 2023, I decided to go to advisor course. And actually the second time and second certification as I have it before, and I did it already. But this was so nice to come back because of the military events in Ukraine. I finished, but coaching program, I had only 1 month to finish it. One day I said, this is too much. And if I will not do this to myself today, if I will not be really good to myself, even I had only 1 month, how could I help others people? How could I share my experience on making priorities about taking care of my life? And then I had a lot of good events, a lot of traveling, a lot of bad, difficult events, and I went back to advisor course to refresh my knowledges, to come back again to this nice and very lovely community that I love too much. I choose this time coach as Dr. Robin Puff, and she also has fibromyalgia degree and PhD, but of course she works with me as a coach, and it was a really good decision to at this time. The second what I did, I came back to take care of my health. So again, test, again controlling my diet, supplements, working with a nutrition specialist, reducing my insulin, and all these things. So I worked a lot of. But I noticed that I spent energy a lot of for I have lost a little bit confidence, and Dr. Paul helped me to understand because of overwhelmed of doing too much. Even healthy people is cannot manage all these things. That was like if I'm okay, if everything is good, and then I found on coaching session that I avoiding these feelings about the situation in Ukraine, the losing my house and my feelings, taking too much energy, just saving them is taking my energy. The second part was important for me. I understand that I'm actually learning on the second language, and now I live not in an English speaking area. This is also not easy, and I'm doing so much that even healthy people did not do the same. I wrote the list and I said, oh, no, this is really what I'm doing now. This is amazing. This is about our own responsibility to build our own way to a better life. So as now, like I don't have any almost flare up. I have a little bit pain still in my leg, but if I do more than 3,000 steps, and maybe that's it. So that's what I have now. And actually, I did 18 flights last year
That's a lot.
to see the blind spot that you cannot see in your life. Even if I have psychological degree, I still have this blind spot. I still need support. I still need somebody who will find the straightforward way. And actually about I would tell you because I spent too much money for nothing when I was alone without coaching because you tried this, you buy these supplements. And I was trying very hard to find my way to feel better. But when you are with a coach, you can find your straightforward way, just do this, this, this. And actually that also, as I was able to gain this very valuable new knowledges and advisor course and also improve my health here and to make my life more effective. Actually, in Russia, I'm also gain about my health, working with some my issue. That's also again taking care of myself, and I'm very grateful to meet Tami, as this is community, fibromyalgia community. For me, this is about people who really had severe fibromyalgia, but they are trying to do their best for themselves, and then they share experience. And this is really truthful life stories about feeling better, about and this is my character. This is about me. Okay, I have fibromyalgia. What can I do else? Even I cannot forget about fibromyalgia, and you never should do this. Even if you have 18 flights, you should always remember fibromyalgia will always travel in your suitcase. So if I will forget, oh no, there's no any fibromyalgia, I will forget, I will come back to the same situation that I was a few years ago. So because of this knowledge is about myself, what I need, how much I need to sleep, what I need to eat, even in restaurant, to see what is good for me. This is my lifestyle now. That's only why I can do all these things and live during this very difficult time of all this military events in Ukraine. And also, I had never been in communities and chats or groups where there are a lot of people just complaining, just saying about their symptoms, sharing their prescriptions, and that's only that they do. This is for me frustrating. We are always in that situation when we feel bad, even I am sometimes, if I feel not good, okay, I'm a little bit can be sad, but just I'm trying to manage all the things. I shouldn't make my life more difficult that will stop me to live like more happy life. And this is community about that. That's why I love. And what did Tami Stickle House for me is amazing because this structure, what I was looking for when I Google, I need structure of knowledge. When you know this will help, this you can try, and this you can do. Not pushing yourself, but with love and good attitude to yourself. And this is the key. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Victoria. And thank you for sharing your story. Oh my gosh, some of that I did not know. That's amazing. And it is so awesome to have you back. It was so sad for all of us when you had to take your leave of absence, but what else could you do? To be nice to yourself if you really wanted to, protect your health, keep improving your fibromyalgia. And as you said, if you want to be sharing that with other people, like how can you tell somebody to do something you're not doing yourself, right? I wish we had your fibromyalgia impact questionnaire score from the first time you took the class, but we don't. I'm sure your improvement overall since then would be a much, much higher number. But this class, you started off as a 28, which is considered mild fibromyalgia. You thought you were doing great, but we still found a way to improve by 32%, and you're ending at 19. So it's such a good example of we can all find ways to feel better, no matter how good we're actually doing, right?
So every day I still working on my health issue and life management.
I love that. So Dr. Robin helped you with that emotional overwhelm. The other coaches you've worked with over the years have helped you with different pieces. What are some of the other things that have really made a big difference for you? I know you've mentioned food is a big piece for you, making sure that you eat the way that helps you feel the best, right?
Yes, when I first tried to diet, I'm on a low carb diet. Like I could eat one piece of cake and I could have flare up. So this is the choice: one cake or flare up. That's helped me a lot to follow my diet. Now I'm okay. I can eat cake, but like I didn't.
Right,
So
right. Once you know, you can make that choice, right?
yes, I can, and it will be okay for me now, but I still trying to follow my diet. And yes, as a nutrition supplement support, because I told you that I didn't eat all my life before 30. So as I told to my husband, I have to eat all this meat, a lot of meat now because I didn't do it before. Sometimes I'm really tired of eating protein, but if I do not eat protein, I feel it immediately. Next day or 3 days, I will feel that I'm more exhausted. What else?
I know that this time you said that really it was Robin helping you with the emotional overwhelm that really made the
Yes.
biggest difference.
Yes, if you, I'm absolutely sure if you don't work with ourselves, anxiety, overwhelmed, and to be like this high expectation that will took our energy for nothing, that's absolutely true. And sometimes we are looking only on a medicine issue, but this is two very important parts, as I think. Medicine and functional medicine, different kinds of taking care of our body, but this is about our mental health. This is very close in fibromyalgia, even though a lot of doctors say no. Scientists sometimes now trying to say that it's not the same, but yes, it's the same because we can spend our energy sometimes, even if we are reading. For me, before was reading is spending energy, but for healthy people, that is rest. Yes, that is different of people with fibromyalgia. We had to know this to go to make maybe haircut. For some people, this is great. For us, this is job.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yes, and about emotional situation, and what about stress? I hate this. I hate these words. Avoid your stress. No, this is impossible.
Right. Like you could end the war yourself, right?
We are living in a real world with a real situation. Sometimes something can happen, and to be ready for this. And okay, this is like my husband had surgery. Okay, okay, I was also stressed and shocked. And then I was thinking, okay, I have to manage all this with my fibro. I still live with my fibro. So I'm ready for this stress because now I know how to help myself in this difficult situation. And that's what happened. And this is very important issue. I think we shouldn't avoid this, like taking care of our feelings, emotions. There are so many practice, so many. Actually, all my life, and this time I also now doing test as sleep test I always taking care of my sleep. This is very important. If I do not sleep, I will be in 3 days in a pain. I know, even in hotels, I look for very dark windows at night. Rent an apartment, I always watching photos because I cannot sleep in a sleep mask. I have movement syndrome. I taking care of it, taking out it at night. So a lot of things, but you will know them step by step, step by step, step by step.
That's right. That's right. We don't do all of it all at once.
Yes, it really easier when you have coaches that who can help you to see these things. What can I do? The small, small steps. This is when you have severe fire up. If somebody will say you, oh, you should do so many things. No, no, no. That is not about this. That is about small, small baby steps that can change your life. And maybe not in 1 year, but soon you will feel better. That's what I found in the Institute of Fibromyalgia with Tami House and her book and with my coaches that I worked a lot.
Well, congratulations, Victoria. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Is there anything that you wanted to say to the people? I'm thinking of all those people out there who are living stressful lives. What advice do you have from improving your fibromyalgia in the middle of a war and living in a country where you don't speak the same language and all those other things?
Yeah, this is the main issue to accept that the life is really stressful. But what will help me is flexibility, getting ready, have your own kit to help in flare-ups, choosing priorities in this difficult time, not dreaming about perfect life, but dreaming about life.
That's awesome. Thank you again so much, Victoria. Congratulations. And I can't wait to see you in class. All right. Now we are going to go to Deb. We're going from Victoria in Russia to Deb in New Zealand. So we're going from winter to summer in this
Yep.
little switch here.
Yep. 28 degrees today.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So Deb is graduating as a coach, which means she has spent the last year or so working with clients herself. But you actually started your whole journey working just with a coach before you ever decided to start training to become one yourself. So what made you make that first decision?
Well, I actually watched one of these stories of hope and healing because I was feeling pretty desperate. I probably wasn't showing that to many people or any people, but I was feeling pretty desperate. And I had found your podcast and I'd listened and I thought, this information is great. I watched the podcast, I watched the stories of hope and healing, the graduation, and I saw wonderful Julie Schiffman and I thought, you're my person. And I just actually looked up when I started with Julie, and it was in March 2021, and the email that I sent her after we had the first consultation was, I know immediately you are right for me and this is what I need to do. So that sort of started the whole thing. And then as we went through the coaching, I had known that I had to make a change in my life. I've been a teacher for 30 years and it was a year into teaching from home because of COVID, on and off, but we had quite considerable lockdowns here in New Zealand for periods of time. But I had been thinking for a while that I wasn't coping well with my job. Even though I was part-time, I was teaching people how to make, teenagers, how to make film. And it was quite a physical job and I wasn't very good at not giving it everything. I'm not very good at giving anything. I have to give everything. So I was really confused as to what to do about that. It was going to break my heart to stop doing it. So I actually needed somebody else to point it out to me. I mean, I knew I'd made up my mind about what I had to do, but I hadn't been able to actually do it. And Julie was terrific. She helped me to see what I needed to do, to bring it out of me, really. So, yeah, sort of thing that happened in correlation was that I saw what she was doing with me and I thought, hang on a minute, I can do this. I'd had chronic pain for 8 years at that point, but fibromyalgia symptoms for a lot longer, but never diagnosed until just previously. And I knew that the people that had really made a difference with their chronic pain had actually made quite significant life changes. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to. Like Victoria said, sometimes you have no control over your environment, but I knew that I had an option. And so for me, that was a thing to do. But also, the people that I admire the most have gone on to help other people. And so I had the skills to do that. And I just knew that it was right for me, I suppose. I mean, I'm pretty good. You always say, Tami, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a hell no. I've always been good on the hell yeah, but not quite so good at recognizing when I have to say no.
That's right. That's right. And I think what you're pointing out here is such a good point, that if you don't change what you're doing, you're going to keep getting the same result, right? Like
Absolutely.
nothing changes if
Yeah.
nothing changes, right?
Absolutely. And I knew all the stuff because I had been through the pain course. A lot of the techniques are the same. And I had been sort of thrashing myself with them because I knew what to do, and then feeling terrible when I wasn't getting any results. So I just was, some of it was just almost a tiny tweak in some ways.
I know you said that the class really help you put things in place, kind of
Yeah.
like slotting the puzzle pieces into the right holes, sort of.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just before class started, I'd been diagnosed with sleep apnea. It's in my family. And I don't think I had great results from the apnea machine for some months, but slowly over time, I'm sure that has made a massive difference for me. And it was one of the first things we talked about, how important it was for fibro people to get their sleep checked.
That's right. That's right. And when you started the advisor class the first time, so this isn't even when you started working with Julie. This is
Yeah.
after you'd been working with Julie and started the advisor class. Your fibromyalgia impact questionnaire score was 70. And I know we
Yeah.
just mentioned before we went live that was right
Mm.
after your mom died, right?
Well, actually, it was just before my mum died because she died in the July, which about of a week before that graduation. But from March and April that year, she was steadily going downhill. And that's about the time I started the course. Yeah, she had dementia. She was 93 and she had been sick for some time. And it was really, really stressful. And,
Right.
we know what stress does to fibromyalgia.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And your score of 70 is actually the second highest score that we have had for students. So just to kind of put that in context for how bad you were feeling, really.
Oh, I was feeling really bad, but I'm not sure I was showing it to other people, which is actually not the right approach at all. I'm not sanctioning that approach. It's not good to do that. But I had taken a bit of that approach with the pain over the years. It was a suck it up and keep going and keep going. And that just started to not work at all, funnily enough.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens. And now, as you are finishing your coach class, so it's been a year and a half-ish. Your score is now 22. 22. So you've improved by 68%. And I know when we did your final interview, two of the things that you said that really stuck out to me, one was that you didn't think that was possible. And number two, that life is very different now.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, some of those things, obviously I miss my dear mother every single day, but that was a really stressful time. And it took quite some time for that stress, your adrenaline to go away. I've managed to step out of the classroom, so I'm still part-time at work and my job is much less stressful and I'm still doing it. I guess it's putting into place all the things that I've learned. And, I put in my bio that, small changes, small steps lead to great change. And that's actually been the biggest thing for me is consistency and knowing what works for me. What works for other people doesn't work for me necessarily. I have to do what works for me. And that's taken a bit of experimentation, which is always something I advocate for with my clients. And sometimes that can be a little bit scary, but there's always the safety net of someone to help you, and you've got your providers who will help you do that. So, yeah, life is different in a few ways. I think it's less stressful on the outer, but also on the inner.
That's right. That's right. That's such a good point. What we experience, like what other people see, isn't always what's happening
Yeah,
on the inside,
exactly.
right?
And
That
also,
whole, but you don't look sick thing.
exactly. And that whole, like what goes on behind the scenes, or, like that whole duck thing, I do need to do things every single day. And I don't see them. I used to think I was having to fix myself and it was a job, but I'm not doing that anymore. Those things actually, bring me joy. This morning I went downstairs and I sat outside and I did my meditation. It's really hot. I won't be doing that in winter, but I sat under the tree and that brings, it's fantastic. I love it.
That's
I
awesome.
remember to be joyful for small things. I just couldn't see that before. Yeah. And some of those things are quite, like Kayleen was saying, quite systematic. I'm not quite at the spreadsheet stage, but I do have a planner that I put my week into every week. And I'm always thinking about what's coming ahead and what I need to say no to, how I need to prioritize my life, how I need to prioritize the things that I value and the things that are important to me that are also important to the people that I love so that I can, take part in my life.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line there, right? Taking part in your life, being an active participant. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you've been taking that and you've been working with your own clients. Do you have a couple of little stories to share about your amazing clients?
Well, they're just wonderful, brave, resilient, wholehearted, willing people. They're just amazing. And I guess the same thing applies to them that applied to me. The same things don't always work. And so they have put their trust in me to give them some things that might work. Sometimes that's actually going back to their doctor or their rheumatologist or whatever and getting a whole lot of things sorted out. But sometimes it's trying stuff that might feel a little bit out of their comfort zone. And I've been really blessed with really amazing people who are willing to do that. I guess I wrote a couple of things down. Let's have a little look. 'Cause I would say value of experimentation. One of the things that they have said to me is that having someone who understands, who has the same condition, is actually really, really important. That being a little bit accountable to me, which is exactly how I felt with Julie. And so it's a safety net. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm just providing them with a safety net. But also, I always want to be their positive cheerleader. I think that's really, really important because if something goes wrong, it's not a failure. It's just not working right now. Let's try it again in a different way. What else did I write down? Oh, yeah. They've commented quite a bit on how it's not health coaching as such. It's a mixture of different sorts of coaching. So we're not focusing on goals. Well, we are focusing on goals, let's face it, but we're not calling them goals because if you focus on a goal and you don't get there, then you're going to beat yourself up. And that has no place in this. We have a focus and we work out how to get to a place with a focus. And they have actually said to me, somebody emailed me this morning and they no longer working with me, but they wanted to wish me well. And they said, what I still realize is it's okay, even when I'm not feeling great and I can feel better. I have the tools to feel better is basically what she was saying. It's always going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's so awesome. And you and I have also talked about the fact that being a coach actually helps you with your own fibromyalgia. I always talk about it being my secret weapon.
Exactly. Yeah. It does keep you a little bit accountable when you're saying, well, how about, and you think, oh, I need to be focusing on this again. Yeah. But it is actually the thing of somebody seeing you. And I always think about this in terms of small change and big change. So I've had small changes that I've done, things that I put into my life every single day. And then I've had to make mind shift changes. I've had to accept things. And one of the joys of watching these women go through the time that I'm with them is that at some point they have come to an acceptance of their situation. And that doesn't mean giving in and lying down. It means, okay, this is my body right now. And this is what I need to do, but I've still got some things that I can do to strive to feel better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I always talk about making sure you're living in the body that you're living in right now, today, not the body you wish you had or used to have.
And that takes some time for most people to see that they can't like I said, thrash yourself into submission somehow. It does take time to heal. So you've got some things you've got to put in place for that.
That's right. That's right. Just time
Wonderful
for
work, Tami.
literally the
Wonderful.
cells in your body to turn
Yeah,
over
well, that's
and
it too.
heal.
Yeah. And I think that's why one of the reasons my score went down so much is, I've gone from being, totally nervous system on the whole time, adrenaline pumping, and some of that was the sleep apnea. I used to wake gasping 40 times an hour. I don't do that anymore. But also the stresses of the things that were going on for me. And I felt it in my body, and I don't feel it as much as I used to.
That's awesome. Do you have a few final words for your ladies out there who are so good at overcommitting themselves and trying to juggle all the things with their fibromyalgia?
Yeah. I would say take a moment to pause and try and talk to yourself like you talk to somebody else, if you could see them doing that. As a long game, life's much slower for me than it used to be. But if I was in the middle of that maelstrom right now and I was watching this, I would try and take a minute to pause and maybe even write down what are the things that are not working for me that I really need to be honest about and to give up. And some of them might be quite big things, and you might not know how to do that, which is why we're here.
That's right. That's right. Exactly right. And those big things are not really meant to be done all by yourself.
Oh, no. And they're not to be done in 5 minutes either. Sometimes the small things will add up to the big thing, if that makes sense.
Yep. Exactly. Well, thank you again, Deb. Thank you for
You're
sharing your
welcome.
story, and congratulations
Thank you
and
so much.
amazing job with all your clients.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tami. It's wonderful to be here.
And that wraps up our graduate stories from our January 2024 Stories of Hope and Healing event. The full event video can be found in today's show notes at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/127. As I record this, Deb is available to help you one-on-one with your own fibromyalgia. And Victoria will be taking clients as a student coach in the next couple of months. Just visit today's show notes page for a link to schedule a consultation with any of our students or coaches. We actually have several new students who are taking clients right now. Just look under the student section or the scholarship section when you go online to schedule. Just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/127 or findafibrocoach.com to schedule online. I also want to remind you that these graduates have shared their personal stories and results. This is not meant to be medical advice, and the results you get may not be the same or similar depending on your own medical history and level of symptoms. If you'd like to explore how working with a certified fibromyalgia coach or taking one of our classes could help you, schedule a consultation online. And if you're interested in joining our next class to improve your own fibromyalgia, or if you want to learn how to help others, we are enrolling now. In our 3-month Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor class, I cover topics such as clearing the fibro fog, thyroid and adrenals, fibromyalgia pain, fatigue, sleep, nutrition, exercise, and so much more. I teach each lesson live each week on Zoom and record them so you can replay as often as you need to. I also include a few catch-up weeks to make it as fibro-friendly as possible. The class also includes 6 months of one-on-one sessions with your own certified fibromyalgia coach to help you improve your own fibromyalgia and implement the things that you're learning in class. How much you can improve your fibromyalgia symptoms depend on several things. It depends on what other conditions you might have, like Kaylin, how severe your symptoms are, what resources you have available, and many other factors. That said, graduates of our Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor class, on average, cut their symptoms in half, some more, some less, in just 3 months. What would your life look like 3 months from today if your pain was cut in half? If you had half the fatigue or half the brain fog? As Deb said, life looks very different now. To learn more about our Certified Fibromyalgia Coach and Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor training paths, check out our special Be a Coach podcast series. These episodes are running right now between our regular episodes. You can also visit bafibrocoach.com. That's B, the word B, B-E, bafibrocoach.com for a comparison chart of the two paths. It also lists the tuition, payment information, and more. We'll see you back here next time. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stacklehouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.